Sharing it on Facebook. Let's see. All right, and we are live. Hi, everybody. Let us know if you guys can hear us.
Hopefully they're just like tuning in with their thumbs up and putting their comments in the comment section. Vanessa, Natalie, great to see you guys. I don't know if you noticed, we had an election since the last time we met. We did one of these, I think, didn't we? After the election, I was somewhat depressed. I don't really get depressed. I was more pissed off at Biden and Harris and for running just a terrible campaign. Yeah. But now I'm ready. Now let's fight. Now this is now the struggle begins. The good news is, I've been through this before. I lived through last time, and the cool thing about DACA is it survived last time. It survived Trump's multiple attempts to kill it. And there is no doubt that they will try to do that again, but it's not going to be a priority. He'd better take citizenship away from kids than end DACA at this point. And he's been really schizophrenic about this, including 2 weeks ago, I gave a interview on Meet the Press, and he said, "Oh, the Dreamers, so bad for the Dreamers. Yeah, Democrats didn't get it done." I'm thinking, it's the GOP that's stopped that bill from becoming law. Right. So, but I also don't see him advocating for Dreamers. I don't think he'd veto a bill, but there's never going to be there will never be a standalone Dreamer bill. That's not how Congress works anymore. Those were the good old days. So it's got to be part of something else. And it's not going to be part of this border package. They're going to put a border package together right away. And that border package is not going to have positive stuff in it. It's going to be bad. They're going to make our terrible laws worse. But at the same time, then there's a lot more accountability for them. Remember, Congress hasn't really touched immigration on the enforcement side since 1996. It's been 28 years, 24 years, did the math, 26 years since they did anything. Now, I don't know how they're going to spend money, they're going to hire agents, they're going to have beds. Trump is not going to deport 8 million, 11 million people, but he'll probably deport 400,000 or 500,000. That's the money that they have to do it. And it's not even just money. They can't use the military. Everybody has to be processed by ICE, and anybody who's been in the U.S. for 2 years or more gets a hearing. Well, there's already 3.5 million people in deportation waiting hearings. I just got my first hearing notice for a first hearing for 2030. 2030. 6 years from now. 2030. So the reality is that there's a lot that goes on in this system. Trump's rhetoric is part of that lot, but it's not the end all be all. He's only going to be president for 4 years, despite what he thinks.
Right.
And a lot will. And in reality, he's really only got 2 years to do so, because I think the Dems will take back the House in 2026. So he's really only got 2 years, and all they really care about is his tax cuts. I don't think he really cares about anything else. Right. So we'll see. We're here to fight. Now let's talk. What should DACA people, Vanessa, be doing? You got DACA, and you haven't traveled because, I don't know, you're deaf and you don't hear us screaming from travel on advance parole. You still have time if grandma gets really sick. Abuela Maria, and you got to get a letter from the doctor. There's still time for emergency advance paroles. But you should come back before the inauguration. He's not going to stop you from coming back, but it's simply a best practice to be back before the 20th, right? So be back on the 19th, be back on the 18th. I had a call today with somebody. She was coming back on the 17th. Great. That's what you should be doing. Right. So if you're going to travel, great. Now, Trump ended advance paroles. The thing about advance paroles is that there was never a regulation passed to create DACA. It's a policy. Okay. So they don't, in order for them to end DACA, they have to go through a lot of rigmarole, a lot of work. That is a year, if they even do it. But advance parole, they can end like that. They can end it if they want to. But let's say you don't have an emergency, but you really want to try to do advance parole, then do it. to do it. And we've been surprised. I'm sure you're seeing this. Immigration is actually doing a lot of DACA cases right now.
Yeah, they are.
And a lot of advanced parole cases. And maybe you get left out. Maybe you're sitting on the desk on the night of the 19th of January, and the officer goes, "Freak it! Everybody gets it." And they're like, "Oh, hell, advanced parole." Well, if you haven't filed, you're not going to get it. But if you do get it after Trump's inaugurated, travel. You're okay. The law lets you back in. It's not officers that let you back in. It's not policy. It's the law that lets you back in. So you should still try to get an advanced parole. And I know it's scary. We all know it's scary. But if you don't have that, and you have married to a citizen, or your oldest child's 21, because we have a lot of those cases now, that you're going to get a green card. And you're going to get a green card this year, next year, 10 years from now, you're going to get a green card. So even if DACA goes away, you're going to get a green card. So now, somebody's asking a question about adjustment of status. Adjustment of status is the law. The president cannot change the law. So if you have a lawful entry and you're married to a U.S. citizen, or your child is a U.S. citizen over 21, you will continue to be able to adjust status in the United States. The hard thing, Natalie and Vanessa, is motions to reopen. Motions to reopen are going to get hard because a lot of motions we've been successful with as a result of the OPLA, the Office of Principal Legal Advisor, ICE attorneys, just simply agreeing to it or not responding. That's actually what happens. They don't respond. If they start fighting those get a lot harder. And it's up to the judges. Now, the judges, Biden's appointed about half the immigration judges. But a lot of those were former ICE lawyers. They weren't like people like me who decided to become a judge because nobody's sane wants to be an immigration judge. It's an insane job. So you can still file them, especially if you're a young kid and your parents didn't show up. I mean, those would probably still mostly be granted. Not always, but mostly. And if you've got to do it, you got to do it. But here's the cut. If you travel on advanced parole and it's not in absentia have special rules. That is, you showed up, but your parents, they applied for asylum, they got denied, you never left. You can just do a 212 waiver, right? You just file a 212 waiver. You don't need the motion to reopen. And those waivers they're almost always granted. I mean, honestly, I've done this for a very long time, almost 40 years. They've almost always been granted. They're not going to change that. But if you have an in absentia order, that's a special problem because in absentia bars you from adjusting status, even if you travel on advanced parole. And the 212 is not going to be successful in that. So the in absentias are kind of the key. And we've been doing a lot of them. And I think we've all but like 2 approved that we've filed in the last 3 years. One of them, the government fought us on. It was I don't know. They were really ticked off about this case. I don't know what's going on. They really fought us on it. And the other one, the judge just denied it, with no explanation. We're going to win that on appeal, by the way. But it's something you should be doing. If you've got that order of removal, you should be filing a motion to reopen. If you have an I-130, don't just file it to file it, because all that does is put you back in deportation proceedings. And if all you have is DACA under Trump, remember Biden is terminating removal proceedings with DACA. They're not going to do that under Trump. That policy will change quickly.
Oh my God.
I've been talking for 9 minutes, Vanessa, and I didn't let you guys ask any questions or do anything.
The questions are coming in. Everybody's just pretty much, it was good that you touched base on the I-130 in the AOS, because everybody's thinking that Trump is going to take that away for whatever reason.
No, Trump's not going to do that.
Before we go into the comments, though, just to clarify, Charles, what we're essentially saying is individuals that have deportation orders, as long as they're not in absentia, should most definitely be looking to do advanced parole as quickly as possible. They don't even have to worry about doing the motion to reopen. They can just file an I-212.
Absolutely, because they can get the 212. And those, you pay extra money, but honestly, it's cheaper than a motion to reopen. And they're actually pretty easy ones to get.
Right. Do you have any type of deportation order? If you're thinking of doing a motion to reopen, do it as quickly as possible. Before things change.
Anything in Spanish? Haga la pregunta si tiene alguna pregunta en español.
Contestamos en español. Es el idioma de Dios. Bien, si vas a morir, si llega a Dios, habla en español allá. Entonces, ya tenemos que prepararnos. You're welcome, Eric. Hey, Nestor. Nestor, how are you? Eric's got a great question here. So what should DACA recipients that are married should be doing time-wise? Well, if you don't have your advanced parole, you need to call grandma, abuela, or your Santísima Tia Maria, or somebody, and find out, make sure they're really, really sick, and get a letter from their doctor saying they're really, really sick, and get that up here ASAP so you can make an emergency appointment, and Dreamers Together will help you do that.
It's as soon as possible. I guess Tisa, can you talk about reasonable causes for absentia cases?
Well, if you're 5 years old, that's a pretty reasonable cause. I was 5. Now, honestly, a lot of times we have to throw mom under the bus or dad under the bus. Why didn't they go? We in one case, we actually had them write an affidavit, a declaration. Hey, I was just too scared to go. I thought my life would be over. I didn't understand the reasons, and I understand that I'm going to be punished for that. But please don't punish my child. And they reopened it. And
also, I've seen, always check the NTAs that were sent in. There's tons of NTAs that were sent in without dates.
Oh no!
Locations with hearings.
The legal argument is, it wasn't a valid NTA.
Right.
So that's why it's so important to do a FOIA to the court, not to ICE, but to the court, because you need the court's file. I had a talk today with somebody who said, I don't know how to get the court's file. It's really easy. You just Google FOIA, EOIR. That's the immigration court. And you got to go through a whole series of pages, but it's really easy. And it's the fastest FOIA to get back. So that's the other reason you want to do it. It's got the essential information, because ICE is taking, I don't know what you guys are saying, 6 months, 7 months, never.
Never for sure.
The CBD ones are taking like a year.
File FOIAs for their immigration file, and the only thing in their immigration file is their DACA. Don't waste your time getting a FOIA if you only ever had contact with USAS in your DACA, unless you need your DACA application to see what was written 10 years ago. See if the lawyer lied or not, right? So then you get it. But it's ICE. You need to, if you have any encounter at the border, you have to do an OBIM FOIA. An OBIM is your fingerprints, the CBP. If you ever have contact with ICE, with the court, besides the immigration court, you go to ICE, and you do a FOIA with ICE. ICE is a black hole, though. So,
are you guys able to?
I have plenty of time. I don't have to get off at 6. I got plenty of time. So we don't want to.
Questions on here. I don't know if you want to choose a question because they're pretty. Let's see, Laura. DACA recipient.
Yeah, that's no partner investment or work. The problem that you have, and after 19, is that you have the 10-year bar when you leave. Because you have a year of unlawful presence. So investment, work sponsorship, none of those work because you need a 10-year bar, and unless your mom or dad is a resident or citizen, and they can file for a waiver, you're not getting a green card unless you're the victim of a crime, victim of trafficking of some kind, or the victim of domestic violence of some kind. Those are your 3 exceptions to that, besides the waiver that you would need. Now, I know the Biden administration created this H-1B D3 waiver thing. We've talked about this on here before. That's going to end day one with Trump. That is a policy, and I think it's a terrible idea, honestly, because Department of State, they screwed us. They could have just said, you leave on advance parole. We agree with the court that said no departure, no tax, no 10-year bar. They could have said that. Give you the visa, you go back. No, they said no. I don't care if you leave on advance parole. You still create the 10-year bar. We will expedite a waiver for you. But the waiver is not a forgiveness of the bar. The waiver is so you could go back to the country and shorten your time here, except the H-1B is only good for 6 years. The bar is for 10. When I tell my genius friends who came up with this and proposed it to the Biden administration, I said, do you represent any DACA recipients at all? Do you really understand what this means? It's awful. Yeah. So unfortunately, Laura, you need to find love.
Yeah. Or I'm a big advocate about checking with your parents, checking with your spouses, and see if anyone petitioned for them before April of 2001. You may be a derivative, grandfather derivative under 245I and not know it. And that is like a golden ticket when it comes to immigration.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that don't know that didn't know that Grandpa got his green card on amnesty, and in '92 sponsored his wife and kids, and they all just came here, and then somebody aged out, and they just, I forgot about it. And that '92 petition is going to let you pay. It's like Willy Wonka, man. You get to pay the $1,000 and you get to do it here. That's when you do FOIAs, but not for you. Grandfather.
Yeah, and that opens up the ability for work visas, employment sponsorship. You can do if you have the 245I. So for those DACA recipients that are over 19, over 18 and a half, check with your parents. See if anyone, a relative or even an employer, petitioned for them back in April of 2001, and that will open up a lot of doors for you.
Now, if you got your DACA before you were 18 and a half, you have employment options. Employer can sponsor you. I've done that for 2 of my own employees. You can do it through investment. You can, and obviously do it through marriage if there's no advanced parole, because you can just consular process with no waiver. That's the other thing. If you do have unlawful presence, and you have to, and the ability to adjust status goes away, you can still consular process. You just need to do the 601A waiver. And unfortunately, that takes 3.5 years. Jade up here at 545, I don't know if you could pull that up. Jade had a question here that I think is important. When traveling, do the officers check your background? According to my parents, we never detained or figured before we never had a deportation order. So basically, Jade's parents just came in. They had a really good coyote, and they didn't get stopped. Now, if her parents came legally, now, this is another time, Natalie, we see this a lot. The parents came up to the port of entry, and they were in a car, and their cousin Elmer, who was a citizen, was driving. Especially in the 90s. This happened all the time in the 90s. U.S. citizen, yeah. Boom. That's a legal entry. That's called a matter of argument entry, and you can actually adjust status based on that entry. So there's a lot that goes on here, and knowing the details of how you came in with your parents are vital. We're working on a case right now for a young man whose dad sent him with a cousin who was a citizen, and he had 2 kids who were citizens, and my client became one of those kids. Now, but my client never said anything. He was only 12, first of all. He never said anything. So he has a lawful entry. He was waived. That is a lawful entry. So again, finding the details of how you came in can be very, very important.
A question about that, because I know of a case where the individual was here. They left. They would have triggered a 3 or 10-year bar. But when they re-entered, that's how they entered. They were waved through. They actually showed a student ID and were able to be allowed back in. So they technically could argue that they don't have a permanent bar since that second entry was a wave through.
And if they came back, if they left and came back before 18, they don't even have a 10-year bar.
There we go.
They don't have a 10-year bar, because the 10-year bar only applies to over 18. It's just the permanent bar that has people under 18. So yeah, they don't have a permanent bar, and they can adjust status. Absolutely.
Now, how do you argue those cases, Charles, when they have those wave through entries? Is it just based on having a very well-written affidavit?
Facts. A very detailed affidavit, and if you're lucky, they travel with somebody who's willing to also write an affidavit.
Right.
Dates, times, places, details are the most important part of those cases. And we don't take all of them. Some people say, look, you just literally no way to prove this. So no, but is it worth the effort? If you have, and those are the cases, by the way, where you maintain your DACA while your adjustment application is pending as an insurance policy. And it's always a good practice. Keep your DACA valid while that green card is pending, because you never know what's going to happen. By the way, there is a 543 question from Freddie that I want to address. Freddie Lucero. I don't know if you can see that. All right. There are no guarantees in life except for death and taxes. Those are the only guarantees. But the only people that I have ever seen denied re-entry under advanced parole are people who didn't have one. Mm-hmm. Because they lost it, it got stolen, or their flight was delayed until after the expiration of it. I've never heard or seen anyone present an advance parole. People have been given hard times. People have been jerked around, but they always admit that because they have to. They have to. So, I can't tell you what reason we'll use because I've never seen it in 40 years.
There you go.
So
I do want you to clarify a little bit about the passport because everybody's like going crazy over that post with the passport and the citizenship and the kids. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't. Tell me. Give me a detail.
Let me preface this by saying, listen up, because this is not misinformation and this is not fear mongering. There is a very high likelihood that Trump goes on his word and decides to take executive action the first day or first week of office. And Charles, if you can kind of just detail a little bit about what he's saying he wants to do.
Yeah, I got accused on Twitter of spreading misinformation and lying when I literally was quoting Trump. Now, that means I was lying there because
right.
So, but there is no doubt. They've already prepared the executive order. The executive order says that the president's interpretation of the law means that no one whose parents were undocumented when they were born is a U.S. citizen under the 14th Amendment, giving an order to the Department of State to not issue passports to such people and issuing orders to USCIS to not adjudicate petitions by those children for their parents or their spouses. So that will happen. Now, next step, next moment, there will be litigation on this immediately. I've already talked to the guy at the ACLU who's preparing the lawsuit on this. They already know it's going to happen. The 14th Amendment is, in my opinion, crystal clear. Any person born in the United States, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. This is the key phrase. What that means is you're a diplomat. The only people that subject to the jurisdiction thereof who that applies to are diplomats, because diplomats have diplomatic immunity. So the children of diplomats born here are permanent residents. They are not citizens. And that's been the way since 1865. There's also a Supreme Court case from 1898 called Kim Wong-Ark. It's a very famous case. It's a Chinese national who was born here, and his parents were living here. The court says they were residents, but not the residents that we have today. They were just living here. And they were denying him the passport. He said, no, I'm a citizen. The Supreme Court said, of course you're a citizen. So the 14th Amendment says, your parents were here. Of course they were here. His mom had to be here because, heck, he was born here. So it is, by the Trump administration, it is fear-mongering. But even with the current makeup of the court, I honestly do not see any circumstance in which any court, district court, circuit court, Supreme Court, in any way rules that being born here, unless you're a diplomatic child, doesn't mean you're a U.S. citizen. Nonetheless, what we tell people, it's going to be a jerk around fun fest for a year or 2 years. Yeah. If you got a kid, go get your passport. Go get it. Apply now. Pay for the extra fee and get it. It's just a backup. All right? It's just a backup. It's good to have a passport anyway. But know that it's coming. It's 100% coming. He's going to do it on day one. Day one's going to be a nightmare, by the way. I hope you set aside time to read CNN all day.
So it's about making sure your children have passports before we're in the scenario where we're waiting for the courts to essentially go back on what Trump is trying to do and tell him he can't. That it's clear in the Constitution and the 14th Amendment what the law is.
Now, Natalie, Seth the Bat Slayer, a lot of questions around 543. This 543 had a great question about DACA. The Fifth Circuit case. What's going on? So I don't know if you can find that. I know there's a lot of questions here. But 543, Seth the Bat Slayer. And Seth, what's going to happen? When is the Fifth Circuit going to make a decision? That's a great question. There is no doubt in my mind that the Fifth Circuit is going to rule that DACA is illegal. I mean, it's the Fifth Circuit. The panel it's probably going to be a split decision, probably 2-1. It's not going to be across the board because there was one, I think it was an Obama person on the panel, if I'm not mistaken. And there was one, I think there was a Reagan guy on the panel, and then one Trump guy. So I think it'll be 2-1. They're going to say, no, Biden doesn't have the authority to do that. When are they going to do it? Well, it's the Fifth Circuit. They're mean. They may literally do it the morning of January 20th, just to just to stick it to Biden one more time. I don't know what it's going to be, but whatever it's going to be, that is not the end of DACA, because it will be appealed. Now, the federal government, Trump's not going to appeal it, but the Supreme Court will allow a third party,
right?
That is the others that are arguing, they allow them to appeal. The Supreme Court, in my opinion, will then will just continue to stay of the case, and DACA will continue in the context of renewals and, that's parole. I don't know. But here's what Trump could do. He's not going to be able to say, look, we're not going to take any more applications. He'll say, we'll take the applications.
Right.
We're just not going to work on them.
Mm-hmm.
Biden did this to DACA recipients. Biden did this in 2021 when he opened DACA, reopened it. They took in 92,000 applications and didn't adjudicate a single damn one. They just took them in as hell. We'll get to them later because they're stupid. They didn't think they were going to be attacked on this. I just don't get it. So those poor 92,000 kids have been sitting on their DACA for 4 years.
That's crazy.
That's what I think may happen. I think they just may not adjudicate renewals, which is why we're telling everybody whose DACA expires in 2025 to file a renewal.
Yes. And I want to just mention this because we see a lot of comments of people saying, well, last time I renewed, they only took a month. And so I lost 3 months. I lost 4 months. It's not you losing 3 or 4 months. It's you guaranteeing that you have another 24 months to survive the Trump presidency. I don't understand why people are so fixated on losing 2 or 3 months. You will have the ability to make sure that you're going to get a renewal now instead of waiting until it's too late, and then you no longer can renew. So that's why we're telling you, if DACA expires anytime in 2025, go ahead and submit a renewal as soon as you can.
Yep. Absolutely. And I saw a couple of people yesterday, they had followed our advice, and like November 30th, they filed it and they got it, they just got it, even though they expired in November the following year. So yeah, your worst case scenario, it's not that you lose time, so you lose $495. That's your worst case scenario. So do it.
You gained an extra year.
Yeah.
You didn't know if you were going to get another renewal in.
There may not be. We don't know. The Supreme Court, when they do hear this case, we won't have a decision from them until 2026.
Okay.
But maybe if they're denying it, maybe that's the impetus Congress needs to fix it. I mean, who knows? I think the biggest problem now with fixing this is that DACA recipients are old. They're not kids. Kids are, the youngest DACA recipient is 23, almost 24. The oldest DACA recipient is 43, almost 44. It's crazy stuff. Now, let's answer that question now. You can put that back up. Put that back up. I did gap for turn 9. No, I'm currently waiting for it. Oh, no, you don't need a waiver. You're golden. Have a great visit in Juarez. Have a great time. By the way, we have gotten emergency advance paroles for an interview. There actually is a policy at USCIS. It's on their website, on their adjudicator's field manual, that says you can get an emergency advance parole for a consular appointment.
Okay.
It's your insurance policy.
Is that available for family-based consular appointments or only employment-based?
It says consular appointments. So
there we go. Might as well try it, right?
You lose nothing but trying it, but you lose $675. What a ripoff!
Well, you only lose it if they only charge you if you approve it when you go for the emergency advance parole, right? So you really don't even lose money.
Yeah, well, in Atlanta, it's kind of weird. I usually people I didn't pay it before I take the receipt in. This way, it's in the system. And also, it's done because immigration agents are essentially lazy. So you bring in a form, they have to put all that information in the computer. If it's already in the computer, they're much happier about their job. So there is that.
File it and then go to get an emergency advance parole appointment.
Yeah, that's what I do. I mean, we tell clients just file it and go in and get it. And again, here's my appointment notice. You get 3 weeks notice of your appointment, generally speaking. And Juarez is a much safer place. By the way, somebody wanted to talk to me. I said, there's a phone number right there. You just call that phone number.
Yes, call the phone number.
there's no reason to file before January 20th. I mean, if you can, great. Otherwise, they're going to keep accepting it after that date. So no, there's no urgent. I've got to get it in budget. There's no magic. There's no magic right date for adjustment of status applications.
And we've been telling people the same thing. We've telling them, don't panic and try to send something in quick. Take your time. Make sure you're sending it correctly. Don't have dumb mistakes on there.
Make it perfect. Work with you folks. Get it done. By the way, the shutdown is not going to happen now because now they have an agreement. Unless this is great, Republicans refuse to vote for it, and there are some that will not vote for it. That means they need Democrats to vote for it. I think the Democrats should just say, "No, you control this. Sure problem. Be gone. Why should we vote for this? You didn't give us anything. No, you're good to go. Have a nice day." So it might shut down. What that affects, the immigration, they continue to take money in, and they do what they call essential services. There are essential things of immigration they keep doing. Keep in mind, USCIS is fee funded. So they don't get shut down by a shutdown because their money comes from you.
Right.
So they keep operating, and they especially keep taking your money.
They sure do. Let's see what other questions we might have.
What are fun questions?
We get a lot of questions. People ask if they can send in their filing fee with a business check or a family member's check, and I always tell them you can send it with anybody's check. They don't care who's paying as long as somebody pays them.
Yeah.
Why do you buy a money order? Why? Why do you just write a check? Most people don't have checks anymore, right? So, and immigration right now you can't e-file an adjustment of status. That's coming. That'll be probably within the next 2 years. And do keep in mind, there's a new 485 as of February 10th or something, and that actually includes the 860. It includes the 864W now. So you won't need that form if you have a co-sponsor. So, but don't file a case right beforehand and not send an express mail. Like the day before that, because they'll just send it back. Right, you get the wrong form. Make sure you're always using the right form on this. So,
I always even advise a week before because they're notorious for rejecting filings that do get there on time for the old edition.
Yeah. Hey, somebody did ask this question: is it possible to do an adjustment with a domestic violence offense when you plead guilty? You need to talk to a lawyer so a lawyer can look at the actual disposition because it depends on the wording of the statute. Because generally speaking, a domestic violence offense is a deportable offense. And if you got DACA with that, there must be some extenuating circumstances or something unique about that conviction. So you need to get what's called a disposition or the judge's order, and give it to a lawyer who's got experience doing these things, so they can take a look at that.
Yeah, I think cases for deportation and things like that, guys, you need a lawyer. We can't help you with that, and we obviously would refer you to Charles or the lawyers in the group. You shouldn't be doing that on your own at all. Well,
hey, there's a question here at 542 that I think from Nestor. Would you put this up? This is a good lesson to tell people. You find Nestor at 542? He's the first 542.
Oh, he's a gingerbread man with the
gingerbread man. Nestor Calderon. Merry Christmas, Nestor. How do I fire my lawyer? I don't know if you know this, but the lawyer works for you. You don't work for the lawyer. You can fire him for any reason, whenever you want. Period. End of story. And he's required to give you your file. Now, in some states, they can charge you. Something like in Georgia, they can't charge you. But you can say, hey, I'm terminating your representation. Please send me my file. Thank you very much. Period. End of story. My email. That's how you fire your lawyer. This is true for any reason. I mean, there's a lot of great lawyers out there. There's a lot of great lawyers here on Dreamers United. There's way more crappy lawyers. So, when you hire a lawyer, you have to make sure, one, that you can get along with them and that they have a good reputation. They've got experience doing things. There are so many lawyers that don't do DACA. They don't understand DACA. I'll give you a great example. It's been 2 years now. I got a call from a kid who worked for Apple. You work for Apple, you're brilliant, right? I mean, you're working for Apple, not the store. He's working in Cupertino, California. As an engineer, super brilliant guy, and he called me and said, you said on one of these shows that my employer could sponsor me, but I went to my employer and they told me the lawyer said they can't because I have DACA. And I said, oddly enough, I know who your lawyers are. I'm going to call them. It's the biggest law firm. It's the biggest immigration law firm in America. They're the biggest.
I know exactly who they are.
They're the biggest. I called the Jefe, the one in charge of this account. I didn't know her. She's been a friend of mine for years. I said, one of your clients just called me and told me that somebody at your company, that your law firm, told Apple that they couldn't do the green card for this kid because he got DACA. I said, do you understand that if somebody got DACA before 18, they can? And there's a silence. I said, no, they can't. I said, do you understand how unlawful presence works? And all of a sudden she goes, they don't have unlawful presence. She said, oh, thank you for telling me. I'll let everybody at the firm know. Boom. Kid's getting a green card. I think it's getting an EB1 or EB2. I mean, so a lot of you just don't know. I was on a call just now with the Board of Governors of the American Immigration Lawyers Association, of which I served as president a few years ago. And they said, what's going on with DACA? Is it still the Supreme Court? These are the best lawyers in America. No, we're not the Supreme Court. That's not where we are. So there's just people, not everybody's an expert. Anybody can say I'm an immigration lawyer. I'm an immigration lawyer. All right. So what? What have you really done? I mean, and there's a lot of ways to find out. Google reviews is a good place to see. Yeah. Avvo is a good place to see. And you don't always trust, Tia Maria, who told you to hire this lawyer because she got her green card or whatever. You need to do what's called due diligence. Check them out and see if they're good. There's a lot of good lawyers in every city in America. There are. You need to find them, and they're just not always that easy to find.
So this one right here.
Wait, so you don't qualify if you have unlawful presence? Well, NIW is separate from a green card. NIW is the immigrant visa. You may be able to get an NIW. The question is, can you use it? Can you use it? Because if you're not in status, you need the consular process. So just understand, if you travel on advanced parole, you can't get a green card for employment. The only way to get a green card on advanced parole is a spouse or a child over 21. An employer can't do it because there's separate rules for adjustment for family, immediate relatives, and business. So you have the consular process. So if you have more than 1 year of unlawful presence, unless your mom or dad is a resident citizen, you can't take that visa you've been given and go get it. Can't do it unless you want to live in your country for 10 years. So
and what I've seen, Charles, is I've seen some attorneys advocate that you can, and I think they're misinterpreting 245K, which is more applicable to TPS recipients. That's not applicable to a DACA recipient.
You have under the rules for adjustment, under adjustment for employment, which is under 204, you need to be in the lawful non-immigrant status, specifically status to adjust status, and DACA is not a status. It's deferred action. So at the end of the day, if lawyers, I think you're right. I think most people telling you that is wrong. There's also the lawyers saying, hey, if you apply for asylum within the time you got here when you were lawful, you can still adjust status. That's also not true. That's also not true. So again, lots of bad information, particularly from dancing lawyers on TikTok, right? So just you can always file a motion to reopen. It's just a lot harder. It's just a lot harder because the discretionary, the memo on what's called prosecutor discretion is going to be ripped up on January 20th. It's gone. Mm-hmm. So the government lawyers are no longer your friends. The thing that's been going on with ICE, the ICE lawyers, they've been under orders basically to terminate every case they possibly can. There's a shortage of about they're missing 700 lawyers. ICE is 700 lawyers short to do their job. 700. There aren't 700 lawyers in America that will work for ICE. Everybody applied, they still wouldn't hire. And they have to get rid of cases. So one way to get rid of cases is administratively close or just terminate. Yeah. Just terminate. ICE lawyers aren't even showing up for court. The other day, when my partner went down, she had an asylum hearing, somebody let them show up. They just said, no, we're not coming. I didn't know you could do that. I thought you get disbarred if you do that. And the judge's like, okay, you're not coming. I'm granting asylum. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. So yeah, it's you can still file it. It's just going to be harder.
I think Z has a question here.
Well, interview would be two. Is not DACA holder. How many individuals has current lawful presence? DACA holder mom is LPR. Well, moms aren't immediate relatives. Okay, so mom can sponsor a waiver for her, but if mom sponsors her, which she can do as an LPR if the DACA holder is unmarried, it's about a 7-year wait, and then she can consular process with mom as a waiver. But other than that, if they have the 1 year of unlawful presence, what I'm saying. So hopefully that's clear. They're not getting a green card in the United States through mom. They will have the consular process.
Consular process. Yes.
I just want to add on really quick because this is something I see very often. If your parent is a legal permanent resident, do not wait until they're a U.S. citizen for them to petition for you to submit that I-130. That is the most common misconception. You think that because they're a U.S. citizen, it's going to go faster. When if they are a U.S. citizen, the time is almost the same, and sometimes that category is actually slower.
So get it along now. Now, of course, if you're married, your parents can't apply for you if they're residents. You have to be a citizen for that. So this is kind of ironic. Our immigration laws make people not get married. Because if you got to file for us an LPR and my parents an LPR and you get married, you lose your place in line. So we have all these families, especially from Mexico. It's true from Mexico because of amnesty and how this whole system played out. They've been together for 25 years. They got 9 kids. They never got married. Why? Because dad got sponsored by his dad and is still in line.
Wow, that's crazy. Let's see this question here.
Install and litigate. And you told me that my wife's parents aren't
So
legally.
his petitioner.
So your wife, this is better word. I don't think so. I don't know when you filed it, but I would be really shocked. Maybe stalled. Will it go slower? It's going to go slower anyway. All right. Right now, if you can go online and look at any city, you put in the 485, you put family base, see how long it's going to take. All those times are going to double. That's just Trump. They're going to double because everybody's getting interviewed. So will the executive order slow it down? I don't think so. They might, but I think it's more something being slowed down because now everybody has to be interviewed. So, we've seen a lot of people when DACA dreamers together that, I got my green card in 3 months and I wasn't interviewed. Those are the glory days. Those days are gone, January 20th. It's like Oprah. Everybody's getting interviewed. You're getting interviewed. Everybody's getting an interview. That's just the way it is. That's what's going to stall your case. Nothing more.
Okay. I guess this question is pretty, or they were screwed.
Well, why would you be gone? You would be, you're fine. Your lawyer's wrong. You'll be able to come back. The way, even if Trump said, in order to cancel DACA, he has to go through the Administrative Procedures Act. That literally takes 9 to 12 months. So you would have plenty of notice if he's doing that. So your lawyer's wrong. Try for the AP, especially if Tia Maria is really, really sick and about to die.
I guess this question. Oh, not this one. This one.
Oh, nice. So anybody who got DACA after they were 18 and has an H-1B visa approved by the USCIS can make a consular appointment. But here is your problem. Even under expedited process for D3 waivers, it's taking a month. You don't have a month. So that option is gone. You don't have a month. Because that's over January 20th.
Jesus. Everything is over.
And even then, that D3 waiver for most applicants, the road to nowhere. It really was only helpful for those that
you're getting a 10-year bar or 6-year,
but over 180, right? That little sweet spot of 6 months. That's really the only people who really would take advantage and get a great benefit from it. Other than that,
exactly, the only ones. Everybody else, it's a joke. I told clients people not to do it.
Let's see here, Jose.
I think the Fifth Circuit, as I mentioned earlier, I think the Fifth Circuit will come down right before the election to stick one last time to Biden. But it's still going to continue because there'll be an appeal. The stay will get continued. I don't really have any doubt about that. I really don't. And I think AP. I would keep filing AP now, and then we'll see what Trump does. But I think AP will still keep going. Oh yeah, Edgar. I had this happen to somebody else too on the webpage. Yet I've had multiple people given advance parole with removal order. It appears that it depends on the office that you're going to.
Yes.
It literally appears to be the case. Yes. So I'm curious to what office you did this at, and maybe you have relatives in a different location where you could do it. I know in Atlanta they give them out. They'll say, ICE has to do that. That's just not true. It's literally not true.
Okay. Let's see. I have no other questions you guys want to answer. It's a lot of questions. Services. What's this one?
They're not going to do that. They're stuck in emergency.
I guess
if your spouse's grandma's sick, I've done those on emergency advance parole. Absolutely. Yes. Emergency dental services. Well, your husband can't drive. He can't function. He can't. He can't do anything. It's going to be pumped up on drugs to come back.
We actually in the Atlanta office for dental, so that was pretty cool. Somebody went for dental. They got approved for an emergency advance parole.
Yeah.
Atlanta.
Atlanta's great right now. I don't know why. It's all a great office, but try it.
Let's see. Natalie, do you see any questions you want to answer on here?
There's one at 6:04 by Johnny.
6:04.
Johnny Maldonado.
To look at.
This one?
No, you're not. There's actually a specific ruling from the Board of Immigration Appeals that says you do not trigger the 10-year bar when you leave on advance parole. Period. In the story. And it's been around for 12 years. Government, everybody agrees with it except for the Department of State. The next question is really cool from Karina. Look, if your kids are half Native American, you should 100% register them with the tribe, even if it's in a different state. The reason is that they get special benefits as being tribe members and citizenship. So they're automatically U.S. citizens. Just so the 14th Amendment doesn't apply to them. They're citizens under a different provision. So there you go. Do that.
To know. Let's see what other questions. This one. Can anybody do anything to expedite their advance?
Let me look at that again. Let's see. I put her really. That's very strange. It's just barely over 4 months. Have you called the 800 number? Have you called your senator? Every senator and congressman, you go to their webpage and type in constituent services, and they have an email. You can email a little chart, and they've been very helpful on AP cases of old ones getting them pushed out. And it's probably nothing about you. Immigration is like every other business, right? They have a lot of work, and they go on vacation, and they come back, and the file's over here. And I haven't looked at the file in a while. It happens, So it just could be that simple. It could literally be that simple.
245.
If a lawyer in Texas can charge you for a copy of your file, and so I was just Googling that real quick because Google tells you everything that you need to know. No, Texas lawyers are not permitted. They are not permitted to charge for a copy of your file. You're welcome. Free legal advice for today, courtesy of Google. All right, what else we got here? Any other fun stuff? I started joining the military. I should apply for AP.
Should apply for parole.
Yeah, or you could do military parole in place. If you have an emergency, do the advance parole. It's faster. And your son will sponsor you for next year on a green card. Or if you don't have an emergency, I would just do military parole in place. Trump let that go. That didn't do anything last time. It takes like 6 months, but then you don't have to leave the country at all. There's no risk at all. And then you just apply for the green card. So I would do military parole in place.
I have a question that I haven't seen in the comments yet, but it's one that we see very often in the group. And that's because we have a lot of DACA recipients who, for one reason or another, also have a U visa application that's pending. And so there's always this question is, if my U visa is pending, can I still travel in advance parole under DACA? And will I be allowed, to re-enter? So if you want to go ahead and take that one away, Charles.
Yeah, of course. U visa, applying for a U visa is like applying for any other visa. It's an application. It has no impact on your deferred action that you currently have. Now, when it's approved in 5 years, they will give you deferred action for U visa, and then you can't renew your DACA because you already have deferred action under U visa, and that's a better deferred action because it's never going away. It's statutory. But applying for it has no impact on your case. None at all.
Yeah, that is a very common question. So thank you, Nat. Let's see, Josephine here. Josephine.
Okay, so we're going to close on left and that's parole. No, because you don't have a removal order, technically speaking. But what you have is really simple. All you need to do is move to recalendar and terminate. I would do that today. Move to recalendar and terminate. And judges will be glad to do that. Boom, 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 done. And that way you don't have to file 212 and you're good to go. That's the simple solution for you.
And they want to do it because they want to get that case out of their.
Of course they do.
Because they're so backlogged of cases.
3.4999 million to the 3.5 million cases. So.
Yeah.
All right.
What other questions do I have here, Nat?
We had Ricardo Garcia ask before. He's asking again. I don't think we answered it about the AOS 245I with LPR spouse, which they answered.
Yeah, go back and take a look. You'll be able to go back and look at this video a little bit later. But again, if there's parole and Trump is president, you're fine to travel. You will always be fine to travel if you have advanced parole. You don't have to worry about Trump taking it away while you're gone. They can't do that. They will let you back in the country.
Paloma, what was your question? I don't see the question you asked.
It's at 6:07.
6:07. What do we got here? We got some good 6:07 questions here. A lot of great questions here, which is why I love doing this. Now who's it from at 6:07? My DACA expired November 2025. It's been my LPR. Yes. Yes, we said this absolutely 100%. File your renewal now.
Of course.
No harm. No harm. Get it in. There was one I did see down here a little bit later.
That's a part two for this question.
Z, I mentioned this earlier, but here's what's important to note about that. When DACA was first created, President Obama came out and said, we believe that this will help 1.8 million people. It didn't, because only about 1 million applied and got approved. At one point, there were 1 million DACA recipients. Today, there's about 520,000. What happened to the other 500,000? They got green cards because they followed the advice we're talking about here. They did the process. DACA has been a life-changing event for everybody involved, and for 500,000 people, it was their path to a green card. That's what DACA is. Laura, the next question right there. You need a new note. You need a current note, days old, if you're going to do advanced parole. Siblings are the slowest petitions. Period. End of story. They're the slowest. They will always be the slowest. But parents are very slow as well. If you're Mexican. Mexico is behind everybody else because of amnesty in 1986. 40 years later, we're still having amnesty causing problems. Because basically only Mexicans, I'm saying others, but basically mostly Mexicans got green cards. But only the men. Only the men. Wives and kids weren't, they all had to go through the process. And that's what you see today. That's why we have this problem. It was exacerbated in 2001 when 245I came along, when 80% of the people that applied to 245I were Mexican family members. That's why we're still 23 years later, still doing 245I cases.
That is crazy. I have a question from Jose here. My mother was an
The country commission again 10 years. I will tell you, I do not understand this question. Denied her green card, told to leave. Okay, what my guessing is, here's what I think this question is. My mother's adjustment of status was denied, and in the letter, they told her to leave. But perhaps they didn't put her in deportation proceedings. If you have your mom's letter, there's an A number on it. Take that A number and go to the portal at the immigration court and see if she has a removal order. If she doesn't have a removal order, she's okay. If she has a removal order, she's on Trump's list.
Oh, okay? Man. So, and also something that everybody's saying, if they have an ICE meeting or they have to go next year to walk in with a lawyer, be prepared, everybody. Get yourself a lawyer. Do not walk into the ICE office by yourself because we just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, if you're doing check-ins, do not do check-ins on your own anymore.
Yeah. Maria, what was your question? We have a lot of questions.
About a school. She was having an interview at a school on something, a little confusing question. But this thing doesn't have a search feature, so you have to bear with us. Here it is. For a background check, and what's an NP school?
I'm being a nurse practitioner.
Oh, okay. I was born in Mexico. I had to stop asking this quick decision. I put it. I would come up on re-entry. No. I mean, there's not some big giant computer in the world that tracks everything you've ever put into a system anywhere. So no, that will never come up.
Okay.
And it's irrelevant because you didn't say you were. Check the box and said you weren't. I think you're absolutely fine. All right. We already answered this question, didn't we? Can apply for regular, ask for a day. My husband. Oh, I read it again. So got it. They gave me 30 days. Can apply for regular, ask for more days. My husband is sick. You can just apply now. Apply now. That's fine. You need more time. You go back. Perfectly fine. All right. Let's ask one more question here, and then I've got to go to my next project, where I teach a class at church on financial management. Because I don't have enough to do. So.
Last question, Wilmer. Hi, Wilmer.
Wilmer! Great to see you. Can you get APA with an I-212 waiver? AP with an I-212 waiver if you have a deportation order but travel on AP? Are you opposed to this throughout the past but in our favor? What changed, Wilmer? That Trump's going to make motions open really, really hard. And his thing is, if you use 212 to get proof for adjustment of status, you still have to go back to the court when you get your green card to let them know you have a green card. So even though you have a waiver, you have to file technically a motion to reopen. So this is basically another option that is not the preferred option, but is soon to be maybe the easiest option. So there you go, Wilmer.
Okay. Well, there you have it, guys. Thank you so much, Charles.
It's great to see everybody. Vanessa, Natalie, you guys are rock stars. And we'll do this again probably before the inauguration. We'll have a lot more rumors to talk about by then. And then we'll do it. And of course, I do this every Wednesday at 1 on my own channel. So you guys have an awesome evening.
Right. Thank you.
You as well, Charles. Take care.
Bye-bye. And this here, Nat.